I cannot believe we have our first ever episode of Your Sober Big Sister. So, who am I? What is your sober big sister? And what can you expect going forward? Hey guys, it's Erika the host of Your Sober Big Sister podcast, where we talk about how to navigate life while sober. Each week, we will answer questions and get vulnerable about sobriety, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Sometimes you just need a big sister to talk to. Whether you are newly sober, sober curious, several years in, or just want to support your sober friends and family, this is the podcast for you. We are never meant to be on this journey alone, and together, we don't have to be. Thank you so much for tuning in today and being a part of our community. Let's dive in. Welcome to Your Sober Big Sister podcast. I cannot believe that this is the first ever episode of the podcast, and I'm so dang excited to be here with you all today. My name is Erika. I am your host, and I am going to share with you who I am, why I created the podcast, what the podcast is all about, and what it's going to look like going forward. And I'm just so grateful to be here with you all. And speaking of gratitude, gratitude is so important to me. So I want to start every single episode with saying something I'm grateful for. So why don't you take a moment, think about something you're grateful for, and I will share mine. So something I am grateful for is my fiance. He always encourages me to go out of my comfort zone, to do hard things, and to do things that light me up. And one thing I have learned over the last couple of years is that I really love podcasting, which is how we got here today. With Your Sober Big Sister, my goal with the podcast is to share my sobriety experience and kind of be a big sister for other people who are going through their own sobriety journey. You know, I know sobriety can be very lonely. It can be confusing. It can be very it's not an easy way to live in today's society. And I think one of the most important things we can have is a sense of community. And I wanted to help create that community here. So basically, what I'm going to be doing every single week is I'm going to be answering questions. My goal is to have you all write in. And so whether it's going to be questions from Reddit, whether it's going to be listener write-ins, I cannot wait until we get all the listener write-ins. Today, we're going to answer a question I found on Reddit. But I just know that living a sober lifestyle in 2024, though we are gaining so much momentum and there's so much progress that's been made. You know, for example, there are so many more non-alcoholic options than there were when I first started my sobriety journey. It's becoming a lot more common, but it still is not the norm. And I know that I have had way more people kind of question me about my sobriety than they ever did about my drinking. And that's honestly one of the main reasons why I want to start this, because I know it can be a really lonely and isolating experience, and community is everything. And so I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. So who am I? My name is Erika. I am the host of Your Sober Big Sister, and I'm 30 years old. I'm originally from southeastern Michigan, and now I currently live in Phoenix, Arizona with my fiance and our 3 dogs. I love to be outdoors. I love personal development. I love fitness. I've been podcasting for a couple years now, and it's just something I'm really passionate about, which is why I wanted to create a podcast all focused on sobriety and just really how to live your life sober. So every single episode isn't going to necessarily be talking about sobriety directly, but just looking at life through the lens of someone who is sober. Okay. And I'm going to share with you guys my sobriety story today so that you know, like, who the heck is she? You know what I mean? Like, why would I listen to her? What's going on here? So I got sober from alcohol in December 22nd, 2019. And that was after many, many years of, though I did not drink daily, I definitely did not have a healthy relationship with alcohol. I am one of those people where I wouldn't drink constantly, but when I would, I did not have an off switch. So let's back up a little bit. I am someone that grew up with some family dysfunction. I have a lot of childhood trauma, and I do have people in my family that struggle with addiction in various forms, come from a long line of it. So I understand to an extent what that looks like. And I also know that I'm fairly confident that I have an addictive personality and that it kind of runs within my genetics and in my DNA. And with that being said, I really did not learn healthy coping mechanisms for various traumas that I went through in life. So when I went away to college back in 2012, I graduated in 2016. But when I went away to college is when I really got involved in drinking culture. You know, in high school, I was kind of like half nerd, half jock, didn't party, didn't really do anything. I was just really focused on getting into a good college. And I was I was a very focused and motivated individual that, had friends, like loved sports, but I was not a drinker by any means. So once I got to college though, and I was on my own for the first time, I always joked that I went as far away as you could with in-state tuition. And it was really the first time I was on my own and really felt alone because I didn't go there knowing anyone or having any like friends or community already. So with that, I obviously got involved in like the drinking culture. And so one thing about the college I went to, I always kind of joke that it's not a party school, but it is a drinking school. And one of those reasons I believe is because it's in a very remote area where realistically there is a lot to do, but especially if you're like a freshman who doesn't have a car, can't get around easily, it's not always easy to find activities there. So a lot of people drink, a lot of people party. And my second year of college, I got involved in Greek life because I went to a school where there was way more men than women. And it was one of the best ways I was able to make female friendships. Now, I didn't stay in that sorority throughout my whole college experience. I did end up quitting. I think it was like beginning my junior year. So, like a year and a half, 2 years in the sorority. But that really got me into the heavy drinking culture. It's where I learned really bad and unhealthy coping mechanisms. Now, when I first, experienced like the parties and the college drinking, like in the dorms, because who doesn't, right? I wasn't doing it unhealthily. Yeah, I was probably like a dumb 18-year-old, but I wasn't like drinking in an unhealthy way per se. But it really shifted when I joined Greek life because it's just so normalized. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm really not. I do want to say that I do not judge anyone and what they've been through and what their drinking habits are. I just want to share with you guys my experience and kind of like where I came from. So with that though, I just really started binge drinking because it was just so common. Like loved the drinking games. I was in like a sorority that was a heavy drinking sorority. Again, we didn't party, but we drank. And I really I had a lot of fun, had a lot of good times. And where the switch really happened for me was when a friend of mine from high school passed away unexpectedly. He was kind of like the big brother that I never had. And it was like really tragic, very unexpected. And when I went back to school that semester, because I quite literally, he passed away over the Christmas break, I went from his visitation into the car to then go up north and go to school. And that semester was a cluster, such a cluster. And that was the first time that I think I really used alcohol to numb. As I said earlier, I also had just a lot of unhealed trauma. So that's when I just started blacking out all the time. I did not have an off switch. I would try to have an off switch and it just did not happen. And it led to years and years and years of leaning on alcohol as a coping mechanism. Now, I do want to say I was doing this unknowingly. It's not like I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Drink to forget my feelings. No, 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 no. It just was kind of the socially acceptable thing to do was go out, have a drink, and then I just couldn't turn it off. Like I would say, oh, I'm only going to have 2 or I'm only going to have 3 and then 6 later or whatever. And it just was hard. It was not the best way to live. And when I got to grad school, that was the first time I went to grad school at the University of Montana. So I was far away. Again, I moved somewhere where I did not know anyone. And I just had more things get triggered in my life. And like I said, I have PTSD, I have CPTSD. So that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Wow, post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So I just really needed to learn healthy coping mechanisms. And at the time, I was doing a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? And like I said, it's so socially acceptable. It is so socially acceptable to just get white girl wasted, especially in your early 20s. It's just a thing. I don't know. Maybe it's not a thing everywhere, but it was a thing where I was. So fast forward, just continued that unhealthy cycle in grad school, and it filtered into my relationships or spilled over into my relationships, which also created unhealthy toxic habits. And then it got just even worse when I then had to go long distance in the relationship I was in at the time, did an internship. That distance, that relationship just triggered a lot of my abandonment issues. It was very unhealthy. And again, I used drinking to cope, and it just got progressively worse and worse and worse. And I was blacking out consistently. I really could not. It was almost like every time that I was drinking, almost every time I was blacking out, which is really scary. If you've never blacked out, And if you don't know what that means, it's basically where you kind of have like amnesia and you have no idea what happened the night before. And when people ask me, like when strangers ask me why I got sober, the best thing I can say is because I didn't like the version of Erika who was drinking. And that's just the honest truth. Because honestly, guys, at the time, I was so like not in a good mindset that I did not care about my own well being. And fast forward again to 2019, what happened? What made me finally stop drinking and realize that I had a problem? I think I was, especially in 2018, like 2018, 2019 is when it just continued to get worse. And I just was seeing really unhealthy patterns develop and emerge. And like I said, I have alcoholism in my family, and I always told myself I would never be that person, and then I became that person. Now, very different from what I'd seen, but still in my own version and in my own way, I was repeating the cycle, repeating the pattern. And so, but I did not care about myself. I did not care about my well being because I was just in a very self destructive, self sabotage nature. But what's funny is if you were not around me when I was drinking, you would have no idea. And what do I mean by that? I had a good career trajectory. I had gotten a really good internship, then a really good fellowship. I have a master's degree. Like on the outside, my resume of life was looking so good. But internally, I was struggling. I was just so unwell mentally. And I'd been going to therapy, right? And we were working through so much stuff, but I just had so much stuff just continuously happen. And old wounds get triggered. And I just hadn't dealt with a lot of stuff from my childhood. So it was just a hot mess express, to say it lightly. And fast forward to 2019. So I hit my rock bottom in 2019. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's other people involved in the story that I want to respect their privacy. But basically, long story short, I was at an event for a very dear friend of mine. And after the event, I went to the bar to meet some friends, and I ended up blacking out. And that blackout led to a very eventful evening. I don't remember most of it. And in the events that occurred, other people really got hurt. Now, not like physically hurt. Everyone was physically okay, but it just was not a good situation where it affected other people. And once I saw the effects my drinking had on other people, that's when I was like, oh my God, you have to get it together, Erika. Like, you have to get it together. And especially at the time, I was in a prestigious fellowship for my field. I was really, honestly, like crushing it on the career end. And I had done really well in grad school. And I was like, you are going to lose everything you work so hard for if you do not get it together. And I was scared. I was really scared. And something that just hit me really hard, like I said, I did not drink every single day. Okay. I could go days without drinking. So I didn't have that issue, but I just could not moderate it. I could not stop. Like once I started, there was no stopping until the night was over. And that was very unhealthy. Like, I wish I could have just one or two, but apparently I just don't know how to do that. And that with the fact that I'd black out or brown out a lot was just very scary, very dangerous, and I was very, very reckless. I did not care about my own well-being. As I've said, it was just not good, not healthy. And I was like, if you don't get it together, Erika, you're going to either like ruin your career, you're going to end up in jail, or you're going to die. Like something bad is going to happen because some bad stuff had already happened. And let me tell you, I don't know your belief system, but guardian angels or whatever were working overtime on me, those poor things. So basically, after that event, I was like, oh my God, I need to get it together. And then I had mostly stopped drinking. I was like, okay, I'm going to try the sobriety thing. And that was August of 2019. Fast forward to December 22nd, 2019. I don't remember what exactly happened that day that made me like commit to it, but I think if I'm remembering correctly, someone had told me like, "Oh, you don't really have a problem." And I just looked at them because they were impacted by my drinking, and I looked at them and I'm like, "Are you for real right now? Like, are you kidding? I know I have a problem because I can't just turn it off. I can't just moderate myself. If if you have to think that hard about I can only have two, I can only have two, I can only have one, then you probably have an issue." And I'd also started to realize, wow, I was really using alcohol to cope with my feelings and cope with my abandonment issues and cope with my trauma. And I would use it to kind of mask how I was feeling because I just did not know how to process those emotions. And that's not healthy, right? And so once that person had kind of like said, "What do you mean you don't have a problem?" I was like, "Are you for real?" And that just kind of spurred me to be like, okay, I'm taking this seriously. So December 22nd, 2019 is when I got sober. And it is the day I would say my life began. And that might sound really dramatic because I'd been in therapy for a couple years at that point. But truly, when I decided to no longer drinking, it was like a whole new world expanded for me. My life is so completely different and it has changed so much in the last 5 years. And there's been some really hard times, like some of the hardest moments of my life. And I'm so incredibly proud that I've been able to stay sober through it all because it's not easy. It's not easy to stay sober, especially when, I had family members pass away. I had relationships end. I had new relationships begin. I had family drama because who doesn't? And some of my worst, lowest moments were in these past 5 years. And I am just so thankful that I was able to stick to my sobriety. And going into why I created the podcast, one of the reasons I think I've been able to stay sober is because of the supportive people I have around me and because of the community I've built within my own life. And I think it's so important. And I know a lot of people do not have that community. And I want to create a safe space for you to know that you are not alone on this journey. And also to just take away the stigma and the shame. One thing I always found so interesting was how many people would question me on why I was no longer drinking and thought it was so freaking weird that I was sober. When truly, especially people who were, around when I was drinking, I'm like, did you not see how bad it got? I mean, guys, to put it in context, in my sorority, guess what award I won one year? I won the Blackout Bandit Award. Yeah, that's not good. That is not a good thing, my friends. And it just, looking back, I feel so bad for that version of Erika because she was so sad and hurt and alone and just was going through so much. And the fact that the only thing I thought I could do was numb the pain away via alcohol, it breaks my heart. But with that being said, I know I'm not that person anymore. And that has really helped me to alleviate feelings of shame, helped me to process all that was. And one of the main reasons I wanted to start this podcast, not only to break down, the stigma around being sober and to create a community and a safe space for other sober individuals, but was just to help everyone know, and I need this reminder for myself, but to know that no matter what your past looked like, you have the power to recreate your future. Each day you can start over. You can completely change your life. So if you've been thinking about it, this podcast isn't just for sober people. It can be for those who are sober curious. Maybe you're newly sober. Maybe you're several years into sobriety, or maybe you just have a family member or a friend who is sober and you want to kind of understand them a little bit better. This podcast is for everyone. And one thing that my therapist told me that really hit me hard and was one of the reasons that I think it woke me up to decide to be sober was he was like, Erika, if 8 out of 10 times that you drove a car, you got in a car accident, you'd probably stop driving, right? Because obviously there's something going on here. And he's like, 8 out of 10 times when you drink, something happens. Maybe you don't black out every time, but there's some new event, new drama, new unhealthy coping mechanism, new scary situation, or you're blacking out or browning out. That is unhealthy. That is a problem. And when I first got sober, especially when I hit that rock bottom moment, I'm going to be very transparent with you all. I didn't really want to go on. I had so much shame with who I'd become, with the things I had done, with actions I took. And I just knew that it wasn't me, it wasn't my true self. But I didn't think that I could live a happy and fulfilled life while sober, especially because society just puts so much emphasis on drinking. And I hadn't really seen good examples of it in my life where you can drink in a healthy way, or even I haven't seen someone live a very happy and fulfilled life sober. I always thought, oh, my life is going to be boring, or I'm going to hate my life. I'm not going to be able to have friends. I'm not going to be able to socialize. Those are all the thoughts I had in my head before. And I have to say that is just completely untrue. My life has only gotten better since I decided to stop drinking. And with that, that is why I'm so passionate about it. And I want every single person to know out there that you can recreate your life at any moment. And no matter what has happened in the past, it doesn't matter. Okay, maybe it does matter, but you know what I'm saying. It is not going to stop you from creating the future that you desire. It's not going to stop you if you want to take a new chance on life. And if you want to create a new life for yourself, you can do it. Fuck the past. I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best to not swear too much in this podcast, but I'm just going to say it. You have the power to recreate your life and redefine your life and restart it. You can press the redo button at any single time. And I think one thing that a lot of sober people struggle with is shame. And I get it because I carried so much shame with me for so long. And one of the things I was able to realize was, Erika, I'm no longer that person. So it's okay. I mean, I'm not happy with things I've done. I'm not happy with the version of Erika who was drinking and wasn't unhealthy. Like, of course, I would never go do those things again. But at this point, all I can feel is compassion for her to know that she was doing her best with what she had and that life was really kicking her in the butt and it was hard. And that was really all she knew. And so I'm just so proud that I've been able to stay sober for the last 4.5 years. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And then there's some people who started last week. And then there's some people who started last week and have already relapsed. And you know what? That's okay because you can get back up and start again any single day that you want. Every single day. At any moment, you can decide this is it. I'm changing my life. This is my rock bottom. Or maybe it's not even your rock bottom, but you're just tired of your own shit. You know, and again, I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best to not swear too much on this podcast. I kind of have a potty mouth, but I'm going to do my best. Keep it relatively PG-13. So that's my story. That's my sobriety story. And I want to start this first episode. We're going to answer one question. In episodes going forward, we're going to answer more. And there is going to be a link in the show notes to submit your own. Like I said, they're not necessarily all going to be about sobriety, but it's really just how to approach life through a sober lens because it's different. You know, and this is just going to be a sense of community that we can do life together. So the first question we have, the title is, I'm feeling very bored and depressed after almost a year of sobriety. And the question is, I'm almost 11 months sober and I love the way I feel physically, but I've lost a lot of friends. So I'm pretty lonely and bored with life itself. Does this feeling fade away? Do things get any better? So talking about being bored or being depressed or being lonely when you're in your sober journey. So again, this is one reason I wanted to start this podcast, start this community, because sobriety can be very lonely. A lot of people do not understand. And I'll be honest, like I had a lot of people not understand in the beginning, especially like family members, the person I was dating at the time, like a lot of people did not get it. And for the first thing I want to say about this is not everyone is going to understand your journey, but you do want to make sure to keep supportive people around you. And if someone is not being supportive of your sobriety, I would really reevaluate the relationship. That does not mean that you need to like break up with that person or disown that person, but you may need to redefine how much time you spend with them and the activities that you do with them. And that's going to lead into how to not be lonely or depressed or bored. And it can be hard. Like I said earlier, you know, drinking is very, very enmeshed in our society, and every single person's like sobriety story is different. So something I forgot to mention in mine is I did not attend AA. I've never been to a single AA meeting. I kind of white knuckled it, to be quite honest. And I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm not saying that, but I just decided one day that it is no longer an option. Drinking is no longer an option on the table. Yeah, I can stress eat that chocolate if I want, but I'm not going to have that beer. I'm not going to have that wine. I miss tequila. I'm going to be honest. I was a tequila shot girly. That should tell you everything you need to know. Okay? Me and Long Island iced teas, me and tequila shots at the bar. That's what I did. And sometimes, if I'm being transparent, I miss it. Sometimes I miss just going out and having a good time with my friends at the bar. But you know what I don't miss? I don't miss waking up hungover. I don't miss waking up being like, what happened last night? Not remembering. I don't miss just feeling like absolute crap the next morning. So what you need to do when you start your sobriety journey, in my opinion, is first really reevaluate the people you have in your life. Because I will say sobriety is a very good filter for those in your life. And again, you don't necessarily need to disown people who do not support you or who just don't get it, but you want to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who are going to be supportive of your sobriety, because you don't want to be influenced in a negative way. And if they can't understand that and if they can't respect that, then they do not deserve a seat at the table, right? And so, like I said, I never went to AA, but about honestly just after my year of sobriety mark, I did start a different 12-step program called ACOA. That's called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Family Dysfunction. And I will say that 12-step program changed my life. And I've thought about attending AA meetings. I'm still open to it. But one of the reasons I haven't is because through ACOA, I really have been able to get to the root of why I even started drinking in the first place. And I learned, like, oh, my first addiction was this, and then it like morphed into drinking. And I learned a lot about being a family member of an alcoholic, being a family member of family dysfunction, what that means, what that looks like. And it just made me understand myself better. And it was one of the first times I didn't feel alone. And that's going back to the question. 12-step programs can be amazing. And AA is not for everyone. It could be something to look into. And one reason I say that is because, one, community, like I've said a million times already, this podcast, community is everything. Having people that support you in your sobriety is everything, okay? Also, it really helps you to feel less alone in the journey, because sobriety, in a way, is such an isolating experience, but it's also such an individual experience. Kind of like, think of like, the Olympics are happening right now at the time of this recording, and I'm just thinking of the Olympic swimmers, okay? So for the most part, Olympic swimming is an individual event, but there is a swimming team, right? So working together as a team for a common goal, sometimes there's those relays, but for the most part, right, it is an individual event. But you are working together as a team to win the event, win the match. I forget what it's called. So with a 12-step program or some sort of sobriety support group, yeah, you all have your own individual journeys, but you are supporting each other as a team towards a common goal. So I would look at 12-step programs. I would look at getting a sponsor if you do not have one. And losing friends is extremely common. So I have seen this a lot. I'm kind of glad I didn't know it at the time, but I've apparently had a lot of people also like talk behind my back about my sobriety and being like, oh, why can't Erika have just one? Because I'm an alcoholic. That's why. Because I'm a hot mess express. I don't know this concept of just one. Trust me, I wish I did. But I don't. I can't. So, with that being said, I am grateful, though, those people never said that to my face, and they were supportive to my face, which is nice. I'll take it. But you want people who have your back. So here's a great example, actually, of this. So in this friend group that I had, I'm not really friends with these people too much anymore. But when I first moved to Arizona, I was in this friend group. And apparently one of the girls, kind of talked behind my back. Now, she never pushed me to drink. They would always, in a group setting, kind of make sure there was like a mocktail for me. Or, for example, if they were making like a big mixed drink, they would keep the alcohol part separate and mix it together after. So I could have like the mixed part of the drink, and then they would add, whatever alcohol they were drinking. And I'm also someone that I'm fine around drinking. I don't feel pressured. I don't feel like it makes me distracted. It doesn't derail my journey, but it may for some people. Like a lot of people cannot be around alcohol once they decide to get sober, and that's understandable. That's hard, but it's understandable. So anywho, going back to my example of, good, I don't want to say good versus bad friendships, but like supportive people versus like passive people. So one of my friends was very passive. They wouldn't push me to drink, though apparently they were talking behind my back about like, why can't I drink? She would just be more fun if she could drink. Well, I can't, sorry. And you missed the fun days of Erika. I'm still fun now, but you missed the wild and crazy days, and that's probably better for everyone. Better for everyone. With that being said, and then I had another friend in the group, for example, I had a couple people over for my birthday, and she brought me my favorite non-alcoholic beer. She brought me the one I was really liking at the time because she knew that I'd want to celebrate my birthday, and it was so thoughtful, like such a thoughtful gesture. And so that's kind of like an example of someone can be accepting of your sobriety, and then there's the people who are supportive of your sobriety and are cheering you on along the way. And you want to make sure you have a handful of people in your corner cheering you on along the way. Hopefully that's some good friends. Hopefully that's some family. But if you don't have that support system within your immediate friends and family, look into 12-step programs. It really helps you to not feel alone. So, does this feeling fade away of being lonely and being bored with life itself? Do things get better? I think finding new activities that do not revolve around alcohol can be very helpful. I also think that learning that you can experience life at events that maybe you would have traditionally drank at without that alcohol, that you can experience it and you will very likely experience it more fully and have a better time. Within the first couple months of me not drinking, I went to a Jason Aldean concert, and that would have been a normal event where I would have gotten white girl wasted. I would have had way too much to drink. And that event, though, I went with a pretty good friend of mine and then one of her friends. And I had such an amazing time. I had so much fun. I remember the whole night. I didn't wake up feeling like crap. And I had people who just enjoyed the music with me, and it was amazing. But then I've also had to really start other habits and find other ways to connect with people. Maybe instead of going to a bar, you go to a coffee shop, you go for a walk. It really just depends. I don't know what you're into, but something you can do, maybe try a rec league, maybe join a church, maybe do some community service. Find a sense of community somewhere that does not revolve around drinking. Find things to do with your friends that do not revolve around drinking. Sorry, guys. If you're watching the YouTube, you see I have an itch. I have an itch. Anywho. But when you are entering a new phase of your life and you are changing a habit, you need to find ways to redirect that habit. So this might be very unrelatable, but I did go through a period of time when I was in college where I stopped heavily drinking. When I quit Greek life, it was very lonely because I was like, oh my God, where do all my friends go? Like, what happened to this built-in sense of friendship? And I was having like a lot of bullying at the time. Like, I was getting pretty bullied. So I was like, okay, not only did I lose this community, but these people I thought were my friends are actually treating me like garbage. Now what? And I decided to get involved in a local group, and they had a lot of events. They had events every Friday, and then they did a lot of other events too. But I first started going to the Friday night events because I was like, okay, if I'm here, then I'm not at the bar. And I slowly but surely got to know these people and became friends with them. And since our friendship was built on something that wasn't revolving around drinking, one, it felt more authentic. And two, we just had other things to do. So maybe make a list of your favorite 10 activities that you enjoy doing and think, is there like a club or a meetup group? Again, I don't know how old you are. I definitely think it's harder when you're out of college. When you're in your 30s, like I said, I just turned 30, but ever since like I'd say 27 and up, it's hard to make new friends. And I'm not saying you have to make new friends, but maybe the people that you would have normally gone to the bar with, you join a rec league with, or you go get coffee with, or you just do a new activity with them. You know what I mean? Or you expand your own activities. Maybe you try something new. Maybe you try something you've always wanted to do, a new sport, a new activity, like whatever the case may be. I'm sorry I keep saying activity, but I think truly you have to redirect, because if you keep going back to the old habits, the old patterns, it's going to be really hard to not drink if you just go back to the life you had before, just without the alcohol. Now, again, some people are able to be around those who are drinking and be just fine. I am one of those people. I do not care if people drink around me, but not everyone can be that way. And so the feeling can fade away, but it takes work. It takes effort. That's the thing about sobriety. It's not easy. And you have to be very intentional with it. So think about, what is it that you really love to do? So when I first moved to Arizona, something I really love to do is get outside and explore nature. It's one of the reasons I moved here, was because there are a lot of things to do in Arizona. And so I got involved in a Women Who Explore group. And so I'd done like kayaking, or not kayaking, paddleboarding trips with them, hiking, stuff like that. I've made new friends along the way. I got involved, I'm not doing it currently, but I did get involved in a Krav Maga gym, and I learned Krav Maga. That was really fun, a great skill set. I currently go to a Lifetime gym, and I kind of do like their version of CrossFit, which is amazing. So just look at different things you like to do. Like, I have to say though, the gym is kind of nice because it gives you a healthy way to get out your stuff. Like, exercise is so good for you. Like, it just helps that energy move out of your system. And when you have gym friends, I'm not saying that they don't like to drink and they don't like to party. A lot of people do, but it is easier to find people who are less inclined to go get wasted every weekend, because typically if they're there and if they're really dedicated, they're probably not going to be super into alcohol because it's not good for you and it's not going to help your physique goals. So maybe just find different avenues, different hobbies, different activities that you may enjoy, and or maybe learn a new one, right? You can always try something new. And it does get better, I think, but community is key. If you're going to kind of go back to your old life and just stop drinking, that's going to be a lot harder. And again, be really intentional with who you allow into your life, because I know that I lost friendships for sure when I stopped drinking. It also prevented me from making new friends in a way, because some people just cannot handle it. I don't know why, but some people are so bothered by my sobriety. And I would just assume it has something to do with themselves. Like they internally, maybe they have their own internal thoughts and opinions and struggles with alcohol that they don't even realize, right? I don't know, but it has prevented me from being friends with certain people, but it's such a good filter. You know, my fiance met me when I was sober. I'm really happy about that. I'm glad he didn't see the unhealed version of Erika. I mean, I've healed a lot since being with him, but he met me at probably one of my best moments. And a big part of that was because I was really sober. Like I think it was a year and a half sober at that point. And I'm really proud of myself. And it meant a lot to me that he really cared about me for me, and that we didn't have to go out to the bars all the time. And I got to know him. Like dating sober is also, it's definitely different, but it was so much more intentional, and it helped me to just figure out what I wanted. You know what I mean? And now I'm in a pretty healthy, happy relationship. You know, I'm so excited to marry him next summer. I mean, we're not perfect, because who is, but it's definitely the healthiest relationship I've ever been in, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. So sobriety can be a beautiful way to live, but it does take work, it does take effort. And if you are still like feeling depressed and lonely and isolated, I would talk to a mental health professional. So I hope that helps. I'm so excited to really get this community kickstarted. Thank you guys so much for listening today. It means the world to me. And do not forget to go check us out on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget that you got this. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Thank you guys so much for listening to this show. If you want your question answered, check out the show notes for our submission form. Come say hi on Instagram or YouTube at Your Sober Big Sis and tell me what your favorite part of this episode was. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so that you never miss an episode. If you love this episode, share it with someone who you think would love it too. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. I will see you next week. And don't forget, you are never alone. Bye.